Hey, how are y'all doing this evening? Does anybody recognize me out on Mount Vernon in the mornings? Do any of y'all walk by me in the mornings? Nobody? Okay. I'm Sergeant Milholland, Sandy Springs Police. I'm currently the Public Information Officer. Um, I'll tell a little bit about myself and then turn it over to you and tell a little bit about yourself. So I've been in law enforcement for 24 years. Um, I'm 54 years old, graduated high school many, many years ago. And after I graduated high school, I went directly into the Marine Corps. While I was in the Marine Corps, went to college, got my undergrad, got my master's, and ended up doing 24 years in the Marine Corps. Got out, got in law enforcement, and been doing law enforcement. So when I graduated high school at 17 years old, I kid around with people and I tell them, well, I'm not kidding, but I tell them ever since I was 17 years old, I've carried a gun. So it's kind of weird to think about it, but it's actually pretty cool to have had that responsibility for so many years, and I've been lucky. And but so that's a little bit about myself. I've got three kids, 30 years old, 29, and 18. So the youngest one goes to Lee University up in Cleveland, Tennessee. So that's so I've dealt with young men before, and so I can tell some stories. I can share some stories. I'm not going to tell them all here, but some do's and don'ts. But that's a little bit about me, and I'm going to let Jarrell introduce himself.
Boston, Mass. Anybody ever been to Boston? I know my family. All right, cool, cool, cool. I was with Boston PD for 5 years. I've been with Sandy Springs for 3 years. 33 years old. I am a community affairs officer now. I did patrol for a couple of years, and then now I'm on in community affairs. And Sergeant Milholland's actually my boss, so which is pretty cool because he really is like the best boss to work for. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I have two kids. One is 2 years old, another one is 11 months. Got a wife. And yeah, and I just love doing this job. It's pretty cool. Went to college, played football in college at Framingham State. Went running back, just like you, man. So yeah, so I get it. I was your age at one point, and I know what you guys are gonna encounter. I probably experience some of the things that you guys are going to possibly come across. So and we'll get to that once the camera and stuff is off. Once the recording's off, we'll talk about that. All right. Cool.
Okay. Um, just real quick, the setup. So we're going to go about 45 minutes. At the end of 45 minutes, we're going to leave, and then we're going upstairs to be with the females. And there's an attorney upstairs meeting with them right now. She's going to come down here and talk to y'all. So that's kind of how it's going to go. So I've got a list here. We're going to try to make it through the list. We're probably not, but some talking points, and I think this is going to open up a lot of different questions and concerns maybe that y'all have, maybe you don't have. But first thing I want to talk about, the most important thing is relationships. And you've already, as you've gone through school, high school, what are some of the different people that you have relationships with? Parents, friends, teachers. Okay. Those are all great. Families. Stay close to your families. Okay, because a lot of times kids, I say kids, young men and women, they go off to college, they lose contact with mom and dad, their siblings, and you start to see the breakdown of the family, and just always maintain that contact with the parents. Um, Networking. Okay, can y'all tell me what networking is? Making connections, socializing, making connections. Years ago, everybody used to have business cards. They would hand out business cards. That's kind of going away. I mean, people still do hand out business cards, but if somebody gives me a business card, the first thing I do is I get my phone and I put all that information in my phone under their contact, and boom, it's there. Um, Whenever, as you go through college, your professors, your advisors, whatever, friends, network, get to know these people because it may be your buddy's you may go to college, it may be a buddy's parents that you make contact with, that you're networking with, that may land you that first job whenever you graduate college. Okay. And I keep saying college. Everybody here going to college? Anybody going to technical school? Anybody going in the military? Any of that going on? Everybody here is going to college or doing something like that? Okay. Um, Significant others. Okay. Your significant others, it's all about respect, communication and respect. Um, as guys, we have testosterone. Okay. Y'all know what testosterone is. Okay. A lot of guys, they think they've always got to be right. They've always got to be in control. They're, by golly, what I say goes. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just a male thing. Okay. Um, be careful. There's a tool in anger management classes that I would highly recommend everybody go to. Because if you can go to that without having been forced to go to that, you learn so much on how to communicate with significant others. There's a tool called the power and control wheel. And if you learn that power and control wheel about the different things that sometimes women do it, but mostly guys do it, okay? The things that they do, the passive aggressive, the controlling things that the guys do, you don't want to do that. And if you're aware of what you're doing, the chances of you doing it are less likely. So that's, and you may hear that again, throughout your life. You may hear power and control, and you'll be like, oh, that was that police officer that was talking about, I remember hearing about that. Okay. In relationships, does anybody here know who Dr. Andy Stanley is? North Point. Y'all have heard of him? So Andy Stanley, do you know who Andy Stanley is? So Charles Stanley was the pastor of First Baptist Atlanta. His son, Andy Stanley, is at North Point Church. Years ago, Andy Stanley wrote a book called The Four Enemies of the Heart. I mentioned the power and control wheel. Learn that if you can learn that. But also that book, Four Enemies of the Heart, it talks about the four enemies of the heart: guilt, greed, anger, and jealousy. So all relationship issues start. Hey, how you doing? No, you're good, man. Come on in. You want to have a seat here? So, um, what's your name? Dennis. Hey, I'm Leon, and this is Jarrell.
Nice to meet you, man.
So, we're talking about the four enemies of the heart: guilt, greed, anger, and jealousy. Okay, and if you read that book, it's not a big book. It's actually a pretty thin book. And what's that? Four enemies of the heart. Well, actually, it's called the enemies of the heart. Yeah, but there's four of them. And it's like as you read through this book, and they talk about the different guilt, greed, anger, or jealousy, and they go through each section, each topic. It's like when you read it, it's like, I do that, or they give an example, and it's like, yep, I've done that. I'm guilty of doing that. And when you read that and you understand that, whenever you do it in a relationship, you'll catch yourself and you're like, I need to back off on that. That right there, that power control wheel and the enemies of the heart will save you a lot of grief if you understand the principles in those books when dealing with significant others and relationships. Um, you got anything? I mean, anything you want to jump in on or
For relationships, there's going to be a lot of girls where you're going, except for you, because you're going all boys school. Okay.
what? Who's going to all boys school? Dang, man. Anyway,
you're going to come across a lot of temptation, right? people will be intoxicated. I will tell you, don't mess with any females that are intoxicated. I've seen that go bad a lot of times. And again, we'll talk about that. But remember, I said that, and we'll talk when it's all said and done. Okay.
Okay. To kind of caveat what, he's talking about being intoxicated, um, talk about unprotected sex. Okay. A lot of consequences can come out of having unprotected sex. Okay. Um, number one is bringing another life into this world that you didn't intend to. Okay. Um, number two is diseases and other social things that go along with having unprotected sex. So those are two reasons right there not to have unprotected sex. You probably, I mean, you can get into a whole different school of thought here, but to have sex outside of marriage, a lot of people would say is not appropriate. I mean, that's probably a safe reason, but it happens. Just remember, if you do, protect yourself. Okay. Um, there's a topic here talking about Planned Parenthood, and I'm not getting into the politics of Planned Parenthood. I'll talk more with the females about this, but y'all know what I'm talking about when I talk about Planned Parenthood, abortion, the Plan B, whatever, all those different things that are out there. Not so much on men, but the females. I've known several females that have had abortions, and every one of them have always said that if they had to do it again, they would not do it. The emotional impact that it has on a female that has an abortion is unreal. Did y'all hear about that on the news? Um, I mean, you got any insight on that, or?
I think nail on the head with that. It's a lot deeper than you guys think. And for females, they will understand more, and because they've experienced that emotion. For the guys, it's kind of like, who cares? You go do that and you walk away. But it really does damage a female. More than you know.
And and we make this assumption that all the guys are like, hey, whatever, peace out. But some guys, that may affect them. I mean, and you create a life. I mean, and the female goes out and decides to have an abortion on her own. It may not be something you agree with, and it can cause issues with guys too. So don't just think it's one-sided, although most of it is, but it's not always that way. Um, in relationships, always protect your heart. Okay, that's the most important thing. When you're in a relationship, you always hear, you know, man, Darrell, I just want to make you happy.
Yeah.
You know,
We're not in a relationship.
shut up,
Don't worry.
shut up. You always hear, you all, you you always hear one, whether it's male or female, they tell other, hey, I just want to make you happy. You can't make somebody happy. And you can bring joy to their life, but you can't make somebody happy. The most important person in a relationship is you. Protect your heart, have peace. Okay? When you go home, Drill and I talk about it all the time. You got to be at peace. You work all day, you go home, it's yep, 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 yep. You know, you got to have peace. Okay? If that peace is, just walking out of the room or whatever, or doing whatever it is, anything other than having an argument or a fight, because you don't want to do that. Okay? Because you do that, then you see people looking like us showing up at your house, and then that's a whole different ball game. Okay? Peace. Have peace in your heart. Okay? Anything else on relationships before we move on?
I think it's that piece, man. I mean, you guys are going off to college. He said it before. He said, don't lose yourself. You're going to meet, again, you're going to meet these females, and you're going to change. College is a place where you kind of find yourself, and you grow into a new person, per se. Um, can go good or it can go really bad. And I've seen both sides of it, you know. So again, just be careful. That whole arguing and stuff and the domestic stuff is real, in college. And if you get that on your record, it can hold you back. It can stop you from getting a lot of jobs. And you do not want a domestic on your record. Nobody will hire. It's very, very tough. Yeah, to get that on your record. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah, if you ever get convicted of domestic violence, you can never own a firearm. So, yeah, just not that that's the most important thing, but by golly, it's up there close to the top of the list. Um, the um, the next topic I've got is talking about peer pressure. Um, being your own person, like I said before, protect your heart. You are the most important person. Um, be your own person, and always listen. Listen. If somebody else has got a different viewpoint, listen to them. Don't shut them out. But you know, whatever foundation you're standing on, as long as it's a valid and um, a solid foundation, stand your ground and be your own person. Okay. Don't let other outside influences like alcohol and stuff ruin your life. Okay. Um, talking about peer pressure, dealing with depression. Okay. How many here deal with depression? I mean, we all do at some point. Um, I mean, we hear about it all the time on the news. Every day, somebody took their own lives. I mean, just in Sandy Springs, I mean, it's almost every day we deal with somebody taking their own life. Okay. Guys, I'm telling you, ain't nothing in the world that bad to make you take your own life. Okay. If you if you're dealing with something, talk to a buddy. Having an accountability partner. That can be a guy or whoever. Somebody that will hold you accountable and somebody that you can come and talk to. Um, but just know, and not only yourself, but know that other people that you're dealing with, and it rolls right into my next topic under peer pressure is bullying. Okay, I mean, you guys seem like a great group of guys. Um, you get in some schools, bullying is off the chain. Okay, and the bullying, and not only bullying like in person at school, but they get home, it's the cyberbullying online, all that stuff that goes on online. Um, that's real, and that leads to depression. Um, I I personally believe, I'm sure there's studies out there that I think would support it. I think it's probably worse with females. Um, I mean, we're dudes, we really don't care. It's like, okay, whatever. Females are wired differently. Um, depression and that cyberbullying is real for females because I mean, they care about what people think, how they look. So keep that in mind. Know that whenever you're in those relationships, what you care about and what you think about is going to be different from the opposite sex because they do care. I mean, uh, Darrell and I talk about it every day. I mean, it's it's different, but just remember, the bullying leads to depression on somebody else's part. Okay.
Just to think about that. Never be afraid. I know he mentioned it. Never be afraid to talk to somebody, man. For us, we talk to therapists from time to time just because of the things we see on the job. We have to kind of find a normal for us. Like for instance, the other day, Sarge was here. I called him. There was a person shot in the head. So I literally had to go there, went there, helped take the guy out the car, went to the hospital with him, everything. Was in the room when they, told his wife that he didn't make it, and I literally just left and went home and had to be normal again. After just seeing that. That's tough. Or seeing a suicide or seeing a young person hurt. That's one thing that hurts us is seeing young people hurt. We don't like that. That messes with us all the time. Um, but again, never be afraid to talk to people. You need to. If you need to go get a therapist, go get it. It's nothing against it. Like I said, I talk to one at least once a month, man. It's amazing. It helps greatly. It doesn't mean that you're crazy or nothing like that. It's just sometimes you need to vent to somebody that truly understands, that's training that. Sometimes your significant other, like I can speak for mine, doesn't really understand what I go through. I can say, oh, this happened today. She's like, okay, well, can you stop at the store and get that? And I'm like, hey, I just told you what I just seen, right? It doesn't. It goes in one ear out the other. It's not that she's being mean. She just doesn't understand. And I had to accept that. So talking to a therapist, it helps. It helps greatly. So if you guys are ever going through something this week, man, don't be afraid. Go see a therapist. It doesn't mean that you're crazy or nothing like that, man. It just means that, hey, I'm just trying to stay sane and I just need to vent to get this out, so I don't blow up on anybody back there.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you kept using the term. It doesn't mean you're crazy, but it doesn't mean you're weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with especially with guys, I mean, we don't want to lose. We don't want to be proven wrong in a group because in our minds in our society, we think it makes us look weak. Okay, so don't believe that. I mean, although that's what was spewed out, but just always be willing to talk to somebody, seek help. Now, let's say you go out to college. I'm going to talk a little bit about personal safety. Okay, there are y'all live in a great city. Does everybody here live in Sandy Springs? Anybody live in another city in Dunwoody? Where where you live?
Roswell.
Okay, Roswell. Okay, all these cities that y'all just mentioned are great cities. Okay, um, you go other places south, people will kill you. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Okay, they will hurt you, they will kill you, and not think anything about it. Okay, um, always be aware of your surroundings. Always have a buddy with you. In the Marine Corps, we call that your battle buddy. Um, but always, you hear there's what is it? There's safety in numbers. So always when you go out to college, always roll at least two deep. But if you got four or five deep, your chances of being a victim are a lot less. Okay. Um, just whenever I've got here, always have an exit strategy. Do y'all know what I mean by that? Always have an exit strategy. Again, right now we're talking about personal safety. Travel in groups, always have an exit strategy. Okay. What's that? Out of a building, out of wherever you are. Um, Being in the Marine Corps, being in law enforcement, I know you being in law enforcement, it's like when we enter a room, like, and I'm talking about like going out with our wives to a restaurant or a concert or whatever, I'm already looking, if it breaks bad here, number one, who am I taking out? And number two, how am I getting out? So I'm always thinking that way. And whenever you go somewhere, always look for an exit strategy because you always hear about it on the news, a shooter, an active shooter, somebody with a gun. If you're in a club or a bar or whatever, which you shouldn't be there until you're 21, um, always have an exit strategy. If you're at church, if somebody walks in that back door with a weapon, what am I going to do? I mean, that's just it's it's a good mindset to have. Um, Interacting with law enforcement officers. Okay. Um, has anybody here ever had interaction with a law enforcement officer, like on a traffic stop or anything? Okay. What are some of the things you should do? Uh, well, yeah. Well, don't speed, but let's say you were speeding. I mean, we all speed. Okay. Yeah. Be respectful. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Normal conversation. Because here's what I always tell people. They always tell you, I know my rights. You're violating my rights, blah, blah, blah. And I ask them, hey, what are your rights? And they can't tell you what their rights are, which that was my first Fun Fact Friday. Because I've always heard they're like, I know my rights. I'm like, well, what are your rights? And they can't tell you. But your rights are what? Yeah, but all that is falls under what? Well, the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, which is the Fifth Amendment. Yeah, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights. Okay, that's your rights. Um, but yes, always be respectful. If you feel like any one of those rights are being violated, hey, go along with it. But you know what? After you break contact and it's all over with, if you feel like your rights have been violated, contact an attorney and sue them. Sue the officer, sue the police department. Go sue the city. But the place to have that conversation on the side of the road is not, that's not the time. Okay. Yeah. It escalates, and it's like, we stop cars for a tail light out or, some minor infraction. And the next thing you know, we're throwing people, when I say we, I'm talking about the officer on the video who I don't even know. Next thing you know, they're throwing them on the ground and, it's now people are getting sued. And I'm just like, what in the world happened here? It's just be respectful. Okay. That's, yeah, yeah.
So that being respectful, it goes a long way. Even if you're honest, man. So we're taught, like in the academy, everything, but we have discretion, right? So we don't care. We don't have a quota. You guys ever heard that the cops have a quota? There's no quota. Okay. Whether we give a warning or whether we give a money ticket, it's still the same thing. There's no quota. Okay. We are taught that most of the time, if you are polite, you're honest, like, hey, I pulled you over. Yeah, I ran that stop sign. Listen, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it. Okay, cool. Hey, you just sit right here. Most of the time, you're gonna get a warning. But if we walk up on you and you start being argumentative, again, we're not out there because it's dangerous, number one. So I'm not gonna be out here, arguing back and forth. But if you want to go back and forth with me, you're gonna get a money ticket every time. And that's with every cop. It's like, okay, if you're gonna argue, sit right here. Go back and we do what we do. Okay, so just be respectful, man. Show a good attitude. You'll be all right. You'll be okay.
Yes, sir.
You pulled over for speeding,
Yeah.
and you're like, why are you speeding?
Yeah.
What you say?
Yeah, just I wasn't paying attention how fast I was going. I mean, that's it.
How fast you say yes or you say you?
You don't know.
What about keep it with?
And that's not being argumentative. You saying, hey, do you know how fast you go? No, sir, I don't. Hey, you were going 65 and a 35. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, sir. I was in the zone. I was just cruising. I was listening to my music. I didn't realize. Okay, that's understandable. But trying to argue if I say you're going 65, 35. No, I wasn't. Okay, now we got a problem. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, you don't know. That's okay. Just don't be argumentative. Just show respect. You show respect, we show you respect. Yes, sir.
If you're on the highway, what's the slowest you pull someone over for? 'Cause I was wondering.
What's the slowest you ever pull someone? I don't know. So I never really pulled over someone for going slow. Usually if they're going slow.
Well,
How far?
yeah. Well, so on 400, I mean, we'll start pulling over around 80, 85. Like if I yeah, yeah, if I pull somebody over 80, 84, they're probably gonna get a warning as long as they're cool about it. 85, so 85 you get into super speeder. So that's a whole different. General rule of thumb, you keep it around 80, you're good. So um well, so I'm gonna tell y'all something. And again, we can go down all these rabbit holes, but in the state of Georgia, and this doesn't apply to Georgia State Patrol, but a county or city, you've got to be 10 over to be able to get a ticket. Like we got to give you 10 miles an hour over before we stop you and give you a ticket. Okay. But because they can stop you at 1 over. It only applies to county and municipalities. Okay.
No, God's special people.
Yeah. Yeah. So they can that 10 miles over doesn't apply to them. They can stop you.
705.
Okay. Okay. Here, let me roll because we're gonna at 7:15, and I told y'all we weren't gonna get through this list. So let me talk a little bit about alcohol and drug use. Okay. Everybody knows 21. I'm not going to ask show of hands of who's consuming alcohol now. I don't want to know. Be responsible though. As you get older and you are 21 and you're consuming alcohol, if you do consume alcohol, be responsible. Okay. Don't get tore up. Don't get lit. If you do, make sure you got a designated driver, a reliable designated driver, not somebody that says they'll be your DD and then um, drugs, drugs may not be what they appear. We all know don't do drugs. Okay. There are drugs out here that are being sold that are not what they are, and they're actually fentanyl. We just had a big drug bust here last Friday of fentanyl, and enough pretty much to wipe out all of North Georgia.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
240,000 pills.
Yeah,
Fentanyl.
240,000 pills.
And nothing's pure anymore, right? There's
No, it's not pure.
There's no drugs that's pure anymore. What'd you say? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the largest drug bust in the state of Georgia, the history of the state of Georgia, right here in Sandy Springs. Yeah. So, remember, others, when it comes to alcohol and drug use, don't do drugs. Alcohol, if you choose to drink alcohol, remember other people are watching you. Okay, and you may have an influence. Like I may grab a beer and and there may be somebody that doesn't drink. That if I drink, that may have an influence on him, a negative influence on him. So be mindful of that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but just eyes are watching you, and you always hear little eyes talking about kids. Kids are always watching you, and if you pick up that beer or that bourbon or whatever, remember eyes are watching you. So, um, operating a motor vehicle, we talked a little bit about operating a motor vehicle. Wear your seatbelts, okay? Because you never know. It's not necessarily you that's driving, but that other driver. They clip you in the back end. Next thing you know, they pitch you out, and you're spinning down the roadway, and you don't have your seatbelt on, and you're launching out the side window. You're gonna break your neck, okay? And I can say that because that's happened to me before. I broke my C2 vertebrae when I was 29 years old, and I wore a collar for 6 months. So wear your seatbelt. Yeah. So we talked about seatbelt use, impaired driving. Is it against the law to drink and drive? No, it's not against the law to drink and drive. It is against the law to drive impaired. Okay, but you don't want to take that chance. So you can have a drink and then go drive, but you can't have 3 or 4 drinks because then it's going to impair you and go drive. You see the difference? So, yeah.
But you're not drunk. You're like, oh, okay, you just had a sip of wine for dinner, and you get in your car. You got to go home.
But keep in mind, we don't do this until we're 21, right? Okay. So I'm just telling you, there's a difference. There's a difference between drinking and driving impaired. Okay. But we don't drink until we're 21. Okay. So I'm gonna reiterate that. But just know, once you get past 2 drinks, don't get behind the car, behind the wheel. Okay. Um, yeah.
Like if you go anything above 0.00,
Yeah. So
yes.
yeah. So there's a card. I'm not gonna pull it out because I have to unhook everything. But there's a card. If you blow a .02 and you're under 21, that's the per se you've been drinking, and that's why it's under 21 because anything .02, which is very little, you're not supposed to have it anyway. So keep that in mind. For a normal adult, it's .08 your BAC, but for under 21, it's .02 because that's just anything, and it's illegal.
So impairment is basically just kind of like directly translational what alcohol yeah.
It is, and the way how it affects you and how you do your motor skills and stuff. So and that's a whole nother class we can get into. Yes, sir.
So, go on college campus, walking, right?
That's, and you're under 21. Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we said before. Be respectful. And that depends on the agency, that particular officer, how you would treat that officer. If it were me, and I mean, you're cool about it, yeah, hell, I'd probably give you a ride home. You know, I mean, it's like, just, just be respectful and, yeah,
I think, yeah, typically, as long as you're just walking, you're not doing anything.
Yeah,
stupid,
yeah,
you're
no
not-
problem.
you're not doing-
Will
Yeah.
we give you a talking, will we give you a talking to? Yeah, maybe will we call your parents? Probably, but
Yeah.
we're not trying to jam no young person up, man. We've been there.
yeah, yeah. Just, again, golden rule, doing to others as you would have them doing to you. Cybersecurity, um, I know everybody here is online. We talked about cyberbullying. Don't do it. Um, there's so many scams out there right now, different fraud. Be aware of that. If you get an email and you think it might be phishing, I mean, yeah, y'all know probably more about this than I do. Okay, let's just be honest here. Phishing, what are some of the techniques that are out there that, yeah,
Yeah, it's actually a puppy scam going on too, man. So don't buy nothing off Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, yeah, peach bag.
Peach
Yeah,
bag.
these-
Oh,
these-
peach
yes, yes,
These are people in China that do.
yeah. So, yeah, and I get those all the time about the Peach Pass. Yeah, yeah. Just don't click on it. Financial decisions. Let's talk real quick about fake IDs. Okay, and I've kind of lumped that under the financial decisions. Fake IDs. Don't get a fake ID, okay? Because you can be charged, and it's a misdemeanor in the state of Georgia if you're in possession. If you make, possess, distribute fake IDs, okay? You can be arrested and taken to jail just for having a fake ID, okay? Don't do it. It can also lead to identity theft, especially if you're using somebody else's identity. It can lead to, fraudulent crimes, computer crimes. I mean, just that fake ID can open up the Pandora's box, okay? And you don't want that. Don't have a fake ID. There's no reason to have a fake ID because you're not drinking, because you're not 21. What was that? Okay. Um, in closing, um, develop, and I know y'all have heard this before, develop short-term and long-term goals. Okay, where you want to be in 4 years at the end of college, where you want to be in 10 years, 25 years, and so forth. How much wealth you want to have, your relationships, whatever it is. What do you want to accomplish? Have a short-term goal and a long-term goal. Final thing, my closing point, and I'll turn it over to Jarrell, is choices and consequences. It's all about your choices and consequences because every choice that you make is going to have a consequence. It may be a positive consequence, it may be a negative consequence. If it's negative, there's a good chance you're going to have to live with that the rest of your life. Okay, and you don't want to bear that burden. Okay. Um,
So, y'all are going to school, man. You guys have fun. Have fun, but be safe and make smart choices. One bad choice can ruin your life completely. The peer pressure, real quick, that they talked about as far as drugs, you guys are gonna come across it, especially the ones who's playing sports in college. You all right? You're gonna go to the football house. I'm telling you now, you're gonna be at the football house, it's gonna be drugs there, man. Leave it alone, man, because it takes one